one of the three ways. One, if you spread misinformation against a community of followers, that is hate speeches. Muslims are terrorists, they are anti-nationals, they are more loyal to Pakistan, so on and so forth. Uh, that's one way of violation of freedom of religion, spreading of disinformation. Second, discrimination. You discriminate them in government jobs, in education, admission to educational institutions, access to bank loans, or etc. etc. Discriminate against them in government jobs or in various fields by the state. And third, by violence, directly indulging in violence by killing them, attacking them, physically harming them, their property, or their reputation. These are the three ways in which freedom of religion can be violated, of any community, of any individual can be violated. So we started documenting these. One, the hate speeches, the misinformation. Who said what? And there is a dramatic increase in number of hate speeches made pre 2014 and after 2014. But the change in number alone is not indicative. Now, who mouths those hate speeches? You'll find President of BJP, highest leadership of the BJP. Two, including the Prime Minister. I can say so without fear because we have documented this in our book. We can say so. So, highest office, government office, government officials indulge in hate speech, indulge in discrimination, and indulge in violence. So, daily, the methodology that we follow is that we monitor, and this is academically absolutely sound. I'll tell you what we do methodologically and why I say it is academically sound. Daily, we monitor five newspapers: Times of India, Indian Express, Hindu, and two Urdu papers, Inqilab and Sahafat. These five papers we monitor daily. Daily we sit and see if there are reporting of any hate speech by any leader, if there is report of any communal violence, or if there is data of any discrimination. And I'll come to the discrimination part also, which are book documents. And we compared pre 2014 and post 2014. There is dramatic increase, as I said, in hate speech, in discrimination. I'll point out some instances of discrimination and in communal violence. Now, although big riots are lesser in number, that we used to have Gujarat, Moradabad, Gujarat, in which more than 2,000 people were killed in 2002, 93 Mumbai, in which more than 1,500 people. These are all unofficial figures. Official figures are much less, but everybody believes. Nobody believes in the credibility of the official figures. Mumbai, etc. Bhiwandi, Ahmedabad in 85, Ahmedabad in 69. There are those large riots, large scale rioting. Their numbers have decreased. But small riots in the form of mob lynching have dramatically increased. and the brutality with which they are executed, the numbers in which they are executed, the spread. Riots have now spread to rural areas. Earlier, pre 2014, it was a urban phenomena in North India, in certain cities, Maharashtra, certain cities of UP, particularly Western UP, Maharashtra, Gujarat, to some extent Bihar and Madhya Pradesh, and to much lesser extent Rajasthan, some cities in Rajasthan. So this was the area in which you saw communal violence pre 2014. After 2014, you see a geographical spread, not only in North India, but it is now spreading to South India as well. Not only urban areas, it is spreading to rural areas as well. And it is polarizing in combination with violence and hate speeches, it is polarizing the communities at a dramatically increased pace. New issues are pressed in service to spread disinformation about Muslim community particularly. Love jihad, land jihad. I need not, because lack of time, I'm not talking about love jihad and all, and I did not talk in Kerala, where the term originated, and it is much misused here in Kerala, and everybody knows. So, love jihad, land jihad, excluding Muslims from the business, wanting Muslim vendors to declare name of their proprietors. We see in Himachal Pradesh, we saw that we saw those orders in Uttarakhand, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh. We saw in these states. So on newer grounds, state is directly promoting communalization and communal polarization through misinformation, targeting. The other thing that we see now is state is increasingly using force to openly target Muslim community in the name of bulldozers, using bulldozers to demolish their property wherever communal riots are taking place. First, Muslims are victim of riots, then they are victims of police force, large scale arrests, and charging them under draconian laws like UAPA, etc., sedition charges. Umar Khalid, 4 years now, and is still in jail. There's no bail, etc., etc. So the state is aiding and abetting and siding with the rioters, directly seen on the side of pre 2014. The most you could say police was complicit, or state was complicit by its inaction against rioters or preventing rioters. Now state gets involved, so to say, on the side of rioters by actively demolishing Muslim properties on the false allegation that they are rioting and they need to be punished because they are indulging in illegal acts. I'll just give an instance because I don't want to take more time. Neha also will be talking about. I'll just give an instance. We went to Khargone in Madhya Pradesh to investigate riots. That is where bulldozers were used in large scale to demolish Muslim properties. Before Khargone riot in Indore, Ujjain, and Mandsaur, and bulldozers were in Ujjain and Mandsaur and Indore, just 25 people, 25 people took out a motorbike rally, which they called Shaurya rally, to collect funds for Babri Masjid, for construction of Babri Masjid. This was in 2022. Funds for collection of funds for Babri Masjid. And they are taking out their rally to collect funds from Muslim dominated area. Do you expect to collect funds from Muslims for Babri Masjid? Obviously, it was a mischievous rally. They shouted insulting, abusive slogans against Muslims and Islam. I can't repeat, although we have done the fact finding and we had to document, that in those words, but I can't repeat those words in this August learned gathering. Abusive slogans in the name of religion. Obviously, someone will get, somebody's sentiments will get hurt, and a few youth threw stones on the rally to disperse those. They left their motorbikes and ran away. Next day, police comes to demolish all the houses, and minister, Home Minister of Madhya Pradesh, gives a statement in Hindi. I'm repeating and maybe I'll translate in English. जहां से जिस घर से पत्थर आएंगे उसको पत्थर का ढेर किया जाएगा. The houses from which stones are thrown, those houses will be reduced to stones, and they will not have the guts to think about stones, throwing stones anytime in future. So that was punishment, collective punishment to the community. In Khargone, when we went, Muslim houses were demolished, but we now the houses from where stones will come will be demolished, isn't it? That's illegal. Supreme Court said it is illegal, but at least the houses from which the stones were thrown. In Khargone, we saw that a Muslim establishment, which was about 2 kilometers away from where rioting took place, that house was demolished on the ground that stones came from there. There is no way which stone could have been thrown from a house which was 2 kilometers away. That means the entire Muslim community was collectively punished. And this has become an official policy of the state now, BJP ruled state, demolitions. In Assam, the kind of demolitions that you see, my God, mind-boggling demolitions of livelihood. They are just evicted. I mean, they give notice at 12 o'clock midnight, and the demolition that you are illegal occupants here, and 6 o'clock in the morning, the demolition squad is there to demolish the entire village on the ground that it's encroached on forest land, without giving, I mean, just giving 6 hours, and that to midnight notice. Who's going to be able to do anything and salvage anything from there? And if you remember the lasting impression of a cameraman hired to take photograph of those demolition, to document those demolition, hired by the police. He was first police fired and killed a person, and then this photographer was jumping on his dead body. If you remember that incident. So all this we have documented. Discrimination. The government is officially declaring, or they first problematize Hajj subsidy, the expenditure on Hajj, that it's Muslim appeasement, it is Muslim appeasement. How can a secular state, that how can one religious community be subsidized? Now, I'm not going into that debate. Muslims did not want, and it was not Muslim community's demand. It had some historical roots, which I'm not going into the details right now. But now you see, 900 crores on Kashi Vishwanath corridor, 600 crores being spent in Jagannath Puri, Mahakal temple, hundreds of crores spent on temples and temple renovation, on pilgrimage, to promote pilgrimage to Ram Mandir, etc., etc. I mean, we have documented where all the state has declared 1 lakh crore spent on Kumbh, Singha Kumbh in Madhya Pradesh. Actually, Kumbh is never held in Madhya Pradesh. I mean, the 4 cities in which Kumbh is held, Ujjain is one city, but Singha Kumbh was out of the blue, somewhere out of the tradition, and state government is spending 1 lakh crore on Siha Kumbh. Taxpayers' money, yours and mine money, to celebrate Ram Navami, millions of diyas lighted by government. The expenditure is mind-boggling. If so many hospitals could have been started, so many schools could have been started, educational institutions could have been started for the benefit of all the people. Pilgrimage. Every state government is saying free pilgrimage. State will sponsor pilgrimage and spend 5,000 per person, supporting 10,000 people or 5,000 people, etc., for Hindu pilgrimage, and where all the sites of pilgrimage are Hindu temples. So discrimination in jobs and all, the government does not publish data, so we'll never know. This systematic discrimination, disinformation, and violence has been documented in this book, so that it's documentation for posterity and for us. And the book also gives, I'll end by saying, the book also states about the policies that, that are required to promote peace. The preface of the book is written by Christopher Jefferlot, very well-known, renowned social scientist who writes a number of articles in Indian papers, who has published many books, academic books. And according to him also, this methodology that we followed is sound. Ashutosh Varshney and Stephen Wilkinson, they published their entire data on communal riots, on Hindu-Muslim riots, studying only 2 papers, Times of India and Indian Express. And as I said, we have looked in detail in 5 newspapers daily from 2014 till date, and then internet check. Uh, I think this is a good documentation, and the results are all for to see. And we also have policy recommendations which are mentioned in the book. Thank you for giving me this opportunity of addressing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we have request our next guest, Executive Director, Center for Social Society and Federalism, Ms.Neha Dabhade.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the Friday Club and this very august gathering. I must admit at the outset that this is my first time to Kerala, and it's been less than 24 hours that I've been here, and I have been overwhelmed and very pleasantly overwhelmed because not just because of the beauty and the culture of Kerala. And I kept reading everywhere. Of course, we read it in school textbooks. After coming here, I read everywhere that it's God's own country. But I realized some profound truth about Kerala in less than 24 hours, that it's not the beauty alone, or the nature, or the backwaters, or the beautiful trees and the biodiversity that Kerala has to offer, which alone makes it God's own country, but it is the diverse culture, the composite culture that Kerala has. And our hosts were very generous to give us some insight into it. And in a very short period, we just went to Fort Kochi, and we were told about 28 communities living there in complete harmony. I had a very brief walk down the Jew town and the synagogue. I saw the names of the roads, which were, there was a church road, then there was a Gujarati road, there was a Jain temple road, and it was mind-boggling that within the few kilometers of the area of Fort Kochi, there were so many diverse communities living together, and the heritage is protected, heritage is celebrated. so beautifully. And I think that's what makes Kerala God's own country, because there is no discrimination by God or by human beings here. So, and is Varanasi itself, where now, of course, huge polarization. But in Varanasi, the largest Hanuman temple was built by a Muslim woman many years back, and as a tribute to her, there is a moon and star part of the architecture of that beautiful temple in Aliganj in Lucknow. There was the Awadh prince Wajid Khan, who was historically playing Krishna in Ras Leela, and a devotee of Krishna. We had Sal Beg. This is, of course, again a story from Orissa, who was a very staunch and devoted worshipper of Jagannath. And we, of course, have heard about Hazrat Mohani and his beautiful poems about Krishna. So we have a country where composite culture is a lived experience by people, just not in terms of poems and documentation, but people live in a certain way, which this composite culture is part of their everyday lives. And this is what makes India very unique and very colorful, very diverse. And like Irfan sir said, that India is a multicultural society, and that's why there is freedom of religion or belief that is most necessary for there to be fraternity, for everyone to live peacefully, for there to be societal peace. Um, there was a vision of India, right? And this vision of India, we are talking about right from 1857, the revolt against the British. There was a vision of India where people fought together irrespective of their religious identities. That this vision of India was reflected in the views of Nehru, Gandhi, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, Subhash Chandra Bose, and I think that was what we have grown up reading and grown up knowing. Different thing because of saffronization of textbooks. Maybe this generation may not know, because Gandhi, according to them, was not killed by Godse. That is a radical shift that we have come to today. But this idea of India is something that we have cherished. This idea of India is the basis of the constitution that we have, and Article 25 to Article 30 specifically talk about freedom of religion, and that is also something that the book has gone into the debates, gone into the nuances of these articles, also citing some important judgments related to these articles. So this was the India that we have. This is the India we had envisaged. This is the India that we had the tryst to accomplish and to meet. Uh, However, from 2014, we have the ruling regime, which has very openly at different places. And I'm talking about, when I talk of the ruling regime, I'm talking about the RSS, because we know it's the ideological parent of the BJP. And BJP itself, when I'm talking about BJP, I'm talking about the Prime Minister, I'm talking about the elected representatives who have been sworn under the Constitution, bound to uphold the values of the Constitution, that is equality, liberty, fraternity, social justice, secularism, democracy, openly saying that our objective is to establish a Hindu Rashtra. And I will take a minute, but I think it's important to kind of recall what is Hindu Rashtra. And I think Savarkar, the largest proponent of Hindutva, has made it very clear that what is a Hindu Rashtra, and in fact, who is a Hindu. So, according to him, of course, we have all read Savarkar at some point of time to understand what this vicious idea of Hindu Rashtra is. That anyone whose holy land and fatherland is India, that means the whose religions originated in India, which were born in India, and we know all which religions have originated in India. That is Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, um, Buddhism, are the ones who can call India their fatherland or their holy land. And of course, the religions which are not born in India, that is Islam or Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, they are of course not they can't call India the holy land and fatherland, and thus these will always be at the mercy of the Hindu religion or the members of Hindu religion, and Hindu religion will always be privileged. And I think that is happening. Hindu religion, its identity, its symbols, its deities are being privileged in public discourse today. And this against a background where Indian secularism has very clearly said that there will be no state religion, and Indian secularism, the Indian state under Indian secularism, will have principal distance from all the religions. That means, there is no ban of display of religious identity in public, but this will be there will be equality for all, and the state will not privilege any religion over the other. But Hindu religion, of course, very very openly, and the very foundation, the very raison d'être of Hindutva is to privilege Hindu identity and Hindu religion over other religions. So this is the avowed objective of the Hindutva regime in India, that is to establish the Hindu Rashtra. And one of the most important component of this, and I think which Kerala has increasingly been seeing, is how to whip up insecurities and hysteria about a projected enemy, and that is unfortunately Muslims in Kerala. And I don't need to again go into it, but we know that the entire propaganda of love jihad, which unfortunately also finds certain sympathy even in the Christian community. And this, I think, has been kind of the success of Hindutva narrative in Kerala, that they have been able to rally communities, just not the Hindu community, part sections of Hindu community, but also sections of Christian community against Muslims, which who have lived in absolute perfect harmony. There are conflicts in every society, but by and large over the years has lived in perfect harmony. How such kind of constant whipping up of hysteria by having the narratives of love jihad, they have successfully, of course, it's not so bad as the rest of India. Electorally, we just have one candidate of BJP in Kerala, but their base is growing, the hatred is growing, unfortunately, even if it does not reflect in electoral terms in numbers of seats, but it's growing in people's consciousness, and I think that is more dangerous than anything else. So this constant narrative of projecting Muslims as an enemy and whipping up fears is, I think, one of the most crucial strategy to establish a Hindu nation, a Hindu Rashtra. And I think this book that we are talking about and we are discussing shows exactly this. It traces the journey of India, which was envisaged by the founders of our country, the constitution, morality of our country, to taking steps towards going to the Hindu Rashtra, towards making of a Hindu Rashtra. And I don't want to sound pessimistic, or I don't want to sound alarmist, but there have been steps that are in a very disturbing trend. And this book, like I am sure you must have watched some series on Netflix, which is a playbook how to be a dictator, right? So this book kind of shows, is like it gives you different ways. It's a guide which shows, how India from a secular democracy has moved towards an elected autocracy, has moved towards an authoritarian regime, or at least steps have been taken towards it. So, and how has this happened? How have we made this paradigm shift? How has this journey unfolded in 10 years? I think Irfan sir has gone into it, but I would like to add a little more. It's not like post 2014 everything was okay. There's a huge bogey. I think one of the misinformation and again the whipping up of fears was the whole campaign and constant campaign, not just in 2014 but even before that, about Muslim appeasement. And there is always talk of Muslim appeasement. Even the most routine rights that are enjoyed or should be enjoyed by every citizen, including Muslims, are termed as appeasement if Muslims demand for it or Muslims want to enjoy them as equal citizens of India. So this whole bogey of appeasement has been used in a very vicious manner by the right wing. And as a response, they have taken a number of initiatives and policies which has institutionalized discrimination. So this post pre 2014, of course, nothing was, the Muslims still were backward economically and politically. It's no secret. I mean, it had, the Sachar committee report is there, Ranganathan Mishra committee report was there, which said that the economic and political situation of Muslims was quite as bad as the Dalits in the country. There was, Muslims still did not have representation, proportionate representation to their population in the armed forces, in the police force, in the elected assemblies, bodies, in bureaucracy. So if there was so much of appeasement, that the misinformation that they have spread, then Muslims should have had those kind of, should have made those strides toward progress and stride towards better economic indicators, but that's not the case. So after that, post 2020, post 2014, what has happened is systematic institutionalized discriminations of Muslims and other minorities. And this, I think, is the crux of the book. The policies is the crux of the book, which analyzes these policies in great detail. So that could be the NRC. The whole country saw huge protests against CAA and NRC. And I think this book has wonderfully been able to analyze how NRC questions the whole principle of equal citizenship in India, which was guaranteed under the Constitution. So the very assault is on the terra firma of citizenship. I think that is extremely important. The other things, of course, are the anti-conversion laws, which I think have whipped up immense debate throughout the country. And I must say that, unfortunately, the truth is that today communalism is played out on the bodies of women. And the direct target, of course, are the Muslim women. But freedom of religion or belief and its violations undermine rights of all women, irrespective of any community. So the Uttarakhand Assembly passing Uniform Civil Code, or criminalization of triple talaq, all these, or ban on hijab in educational institutions, these are ways to kind of discriminate but also undermine the agency of women. And I think this is one of the most important questions we'll have to grapple as a society. And like I said, it's just not a question of Muslim women, but something like love jihad also undermines the choice of Hindu women to choose their own life partners. So how the state has crossed its boundaries to actually not just their role is not now to safeguard citizens and safeguard citizens under the framework of the Constitution, but now get into their homes and determine what they eat, who they marry, what kind of a relationship they should live in. And I think this is dangerous. This is a very, very distinctive step towards authoritarian state. So this is the most, the book is flagging this danger very starkly. So NRC, anti-conversion laws, thankfully Kerala still beef is eaten, but states like ours and 11 other states, there is just not restriction on beef and smuggling of cows, but criminalizations of Muslims. How these laws are being weaponized to target Muslims, Christians, and Adivasis is a huge, huge problem. And there are numbers given, and there are very stark cases given how this weaponization of anti-conversion laws has happened. Something as simple as one example, which may make it clearer, that a woman in Gujarat, in Vadodara, goes to a police station. She is a Dalit woman, a Hindu Dalit woman. Her husband is a Muslim man, and she's facing domestic violence. And how she goes to the police station complaining about domestic violence. And the police concocts a whole story about love jihad and books her husband under the charges of anti-conversion laws. And the woman kept telling about how she wants to live with her husband. She doesn't want to separate from her husband. There has been no coercion. No one has, in fact, she has not even converted. But how the police goes ahead and concocts a story, manufactures a story of love jihad and targets Muslim men. So there are some very real, scary stories, real stories from society. There was one story from UP where the woman had to undergo miscarriage because her husband was locked up. And of course, there was voluntarily, willingly, she had married the man. So the state now going into the premises of Indian households and determining very, very private issues of women and men and any citizen. I think that's a very dangerous step, and that's what the um, book does cover. Another thing I think which is very important is something that Irfan sir has spoken about is the change in the patterns of violence, the mob lynchings, which was of course not there prior to 2015, but also the communal riots, about how the state has become a rioter itself, again going much beyond and completely in violation of the duty that it is supposed to be carrying out and becoming a rioter itself. I think one of the most scary aspects of this is that any right-wing vigilante group like Bajrang Dal, or there is a mushrooming actually, and that is again something. There have been certain interviews that are made, even in the case of anti-Christian violence, which shows that there is a mushrooming of violent Hindu right-wing groups which have mushroomed, and with utmost impunity they can go and start a communal riot. And as one of the examples that was given is the weaponization of Hindu festivals. Earlier, to have a riot before 2014, as eminent scholars have written, you needed a institutionalized riot system. It was not easy to just have a communal riot, you had to plan. Maybe a piece of meat would be found in a mosque or a temple, or there would be some elaborate planning. Now you don't need that. You just need to go have 50 youth, which is very easily they can gather 50 youth, politicize 50 youth, get them out on roads, allege that there was stone pelting, or allege that someone has hurt their religious sentiment, and the police will step in and do their work. Just not that, and just not the bulldozer governance, which is bad enough, it's anti constitutional, but the fact that the communities have now started this trend in the last 10 years of economically and socially boycotting Muslim communities in those regions. I think this is the most, again, something that is unheard of earlier, but effectively boycotting economically Muslim communities. That is, they will not buy anything from them, they will not even sell milk to Muslim communities. And I have heard Muslim women during riots telling me about how their children need milk, but the vendor in the village whom they have been dealing with for years will not sell them milk. So I think this has been one of the most disturbing trends, which is also covered by the book. Mob lynchings, yes, again, that anyone can be lynched with utmost impunity. And we know that sometimes there has been presence of police personnel at the site of crime, and they have just stood there. And there are, of course, pictures showing that. So the impunity with which these mobs operate also is a reflection of a complete breakdown of law and order. That again is a breakdown of democratic institutions in the country, and I'll just come to it in a bit. Uh, we have spoken about hate speeches, and I think the most glaring example of this is that during this election, how the election commission was constantly, the opposition parties, civil society organizations have gone to the election commission with proof, with video recordings, saying that these hate speeches have been given no less than the prime minister, the home minister, and chief ministers of BJP, and the EC chose to do nothing, absolutely nothing. They let it go on. So this systematic erosion of democratic institutions, and that could also include judiciary, because we know how the Kashmir scrapping of 370 was handled. We know how political prisoners, I would call Umar Khalid a political prisoner, how that's being handled, how Manipur has been handled. I think that is one of the blots of Indian democracy, but how there is a very, very systematic erosion of democratic institutions in the country. and this has also been captured by the book. And like Irfan sir was saying, what is the positive is that there are some recommendations for civil society as well as the state, what can be done in this book against all this. And I think India is violence free, that in India there are no communal riots after 2014, and they have said that on record. And as a reflection or as part of this policy, the NCRB, that's the National Bureau of Crime Records, has stopped publishing data about communal riots. Earlier it used to, now it has completely stopped publishing data. And of course, the state has always maintained that it never records any of the mob lynchings. So, this narrative, if it has to be punctured, there has to be some documentation with some hard proof. This is one of the recommendations of the book, and how civil society has definitely a role to play in promoting communal harmony and freedom of religion or belief. So I think, and not to sound pessimistic, there is a lot of hope in this country, and I think I'm going back with renewed hope after being to Kerala and after seeing the immense warmth and love that there is between communities, mutual respect that is there between communities. So thank you for hearing us.